Do you think the most terrifying punishment is the guillotine? A quick blow. A moment, and it's all over. No. Human history knows punishments so refined in their cruelty that even modern horror movies could not fully recreate them. And the most terrifying thing is that all of this took place in public. In front of children, families, crowds that laughed, ate, drank, and watched death, just as we watch movies today. The Middle Ages. Antiquity. Asia. Europe. Everywhere in the world, people invented new ways not just to kill, but to make people suffer long, slowly, spectacularly. Because fear is the best weapon. And those in power have always known this. Before we begin, it is important to note. This is historical documentary material created for educational purposes. It contains descriptions of violence that are historical in nature. Imagine a city square. The sun is at its zenith. Hot air shimmers above the stone. Hundreds of people have gathered near a wooden platform. Children sit on their parents' shoulders, some hold glasses of wine. The crowd roars. Because now there will be a show. A show of death. Today we will recall several such performances, where people turned execution into a ritual of fear. And we will start with one of the most terrifying methods in history. Backhand index pointing right, the Persian boat. Torture in which a person rotted alive under the scorching sun. A hot day in Persia. The sun is high, the air is still. In the middle of the river are two wooden boats joined together. Between them is a person. Their arms and legs stick out. And their head peeks through a narrow opening. They cannot move. They cannot escape. This is a Persian boat, one of the most terrifying executions known to mankind. This punishment was not for just anyone, but for those who were meant to serve as an example to others. First, the victim was fed honey and milk. Forcibly. They poured it down her throat until she could no longer swallow. Strange. But there was logic in it. The milk and honey caused indigestion. And the body began to decay from the inside. Even while the heart was still beating. Then it got even worse. The face, arms, and legs were smeared with sticky honey, so that the skin glistened like a dessert. After that, the boat was taken to the middle of the river. In the heat. Among the insects. First, the flies arrived. Hundreds, then thousands. They crawled into her nose, ears, mouth. Flew into her eyes, and laid eggs just under her skin. All a person could do was blink. Screaming was useless. Because no one on the shore could hear. After a day, the body became a living incubator. Larvae hatched from the eggs. They crawled into wounds, under the skin, into the eye sockets. The body rotted, but the brain still understood what was happening. It sounds like fiction. But it's history. The sun was scorching. Honey boiled on the skin. The insects did not fly away. Fish under the boat smelled the scent and swam closer. This lasted for days. Sometimes a week. A week of living decay. When death finally came, the body already resembled a corpse. But a corpse that had been breathing just yesterday. This method was called punishment for treason in Persia. But in reality, it was a display of fear. A demonstration of what the authorities could do to anyone. Historians today call it one of the most sophisticated forms of biological execution. And for those who saw it then, it was not horror, it was normal. Because people get used to everything. Even to death rotting in water. If the Persian boat is death by decay, then the wheel of torture is death by sound. The sound of bones crunching. Imagine a square in a European city in the 17th century. The sun, the cries of merchants, the smell of wine. Today is a holiday here. A holiday of execution. On the platform is a huge wooden wheel. Next to it stands the executioner, wearing a leather apron, with a hammer in his hands. In front of him is the condemned man. Stretched out, tied with ropes, like a doll before breaking. The executioner begins. The first blow is to the leg. The second is to the arm. The crunch of bones echoes across the square. People gasp. Some laugh. This is a theater of cruelty. Each blow is part of the performance. When all the limbs are broken, the body is woven into the wheel. It is no longer human. It is distorted, broken, turned into an exhibit. During the execution on the wheel, the executioner had a special score of blows, so that each bone would break in a specific order. It was a real ritual of violence, in which no accidental movement was allowed. The wheel is raised vertically. And there, in front of everyone, is a living person, who is still breathing but can no longer move. Birds circle overhead. They know there will soon be a feast. Sometimes the executioner showed mercy. A final blow to the chest to end the torment. But more often than not, he left it as it was. For show. Because the wheel of torture is not a punishment. It is a spectacle that lasted for days. And now, another scene. Another civilization. The same logic. Ancient Sicily. The ruler Phalaris is looking for a new way to punish his enemies. And one craftsman brings him an invention. A shiny bronze bull. Hollow inside. With a hole instead of a mouth and nostrils. The idea is brilliantly horrific. A person is locked inside. A fire is lit under the belly. The bronze heats up. The screams inside turn into roars. Through special pipes in the bull's head. The crowd hears not suffering, but the music of death. The roar of hell, as the ancients said. The person inside slowly burns to death. The air becomes fire. The body becomes ashes. And the voice becomes part of the show. The irony of fate. Phalaris, the ruler who invented this horror, died in that very bull. His own screams echoed through the bronze. Just like the screams of his victims. And this is not a movie. It really happened. The bronze bull was later used by the Romans, but as a symbol of justice, not punishment. Its image was placed near courts as a reminder, even tyrants get their comeuppance. These executions are not accidental. They are a mechanism of power. Because when the crowd sees someone suffering, it understands that power is almighty. There are executions that don't just kill. They destroy consciousness millimeter by millimeter. One such execution is sawing in half. The victim was hung upside down. The blood did not flow. The brain remained alive. And then the executioner began, slowly. Between the legs, right in the center of the body. The saw moved down. Methodically. Without haste. The first centimeter, pain. The second, despair. Then, no longer screams, but moans that fade into the crowd. Sometimes people remained conscious. Until their chest was sawed off. This is not a scene from a horror movie. This is a sentence. And in China, cruelty was elevated to the level of ritual. Death by 1,000 cuts, Ling Chi. The condemned was tied to a wooden platform. The executioner took a knife and began to cut. Not to kill. To preserve life as long as possible. In China, the last death by 1,000 cuts was carried out only in 1905. This means that medieval cruelty still existed in the world at the beginning of the 20th century. The first cut, through the skin. The second, deeper. The third, even deeper. Hundreds of cuts. And not a single fatal one. The executioner avoided the heart. He did his job methodically. Like a craftsman polishing a statue. And around him were spectators. They watched. They did not look away. For them, it was not a crime. It was a lesson. When the person finally died, the body remained standing, like a statue made of flesh. In Byzantium, people were blinded with red-hot metal. The Aztecs skinned them and put their skin on priests. In Europe, they were boiled alive in cauldrons of oil. And all this was done with one goal in mind: to show power. To show that the authorities decide how you will live and how you will die. Death here is not the end. It is an instrument of fear. We walked through the darkness. Persian boats. Wheels of torture. Bronze bulls. Saws, hooks, knives. And I want to think that this is a story about monsters. About inhuman beings. About insane executioners. But no. This is a story about people. Executioners who were simply doing their job. Spectators who came to watch. Judges who said, "It must be done." Public executions in France were attended like theater performances, with tickets, stands, and wine cellars. Some people came not with horror, but with excitement, as if to a premiere. This is not a separate chapter in history. This is humanity itself. As it was. And, perhaps, as it is. Fear has always been the currency of power. And the more terrifying the punishment, the longer order lasts. We have not become less cruel. We have simply replaced the square with the screen. So the next time you hear the words "dark times," remember. Darkness is not somewhere in the past. It is within us.